What's up, Blue Ridge? I am Josh. This is Cammie.
Hey, guys.
We are the service hosts for today, and I hope that you guys have survived the winter storm.
Yes, I am ready for spring. No more ice, no
Ready
more
for the
snow.
warmth.
Yes.
Be done. Be gone.
For those of you who have been watching for a little while, or those of you who call Blue Ridge home, you can give toward the ministry here at Blue Ridge Community Church. And you can do that many different ways. You can do that online. You can text to give. You can send us a check if you're feeling a little old school. And you can find all those details out at blueridge.org/giving.
Yep. You can also give in person if you go to.
Yes.
Assuming.
If you're here.
Since you're online, that's not your thing, but it is an option. Last week, we mentioned the hashtag LYN.
Hashtag.
What does that mean?
Love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor. Loving your communities. We've got some really cool stories that I'm excited to share. One of them is from one of our life groups, Single Life. They all got together and got cookies and delivered them to the police department.
Yeah.
We have gotten a very nice letter back from the Lynchburg Police Department.
I love that.
That's what it's all about, loving the community.
Well, and it can be a little elusive. Like, how can I love my neighbor? How can I love my community? And so I wanted to share one that somebody shared with me that I loved. So this past Valentine's Day, it was a little bit icy. Some churches had to close their doors because of the ice. One family in particular, they got up, they got ready, they got in their car, ready to go to church, all the kids, everyone, and their church was closed for ice. So this was the cool part. They're new to the area, and they decided to go buy donuts and deliver it to all of their neighbors around them, who they're still just like maybe meeting for the first time or getting to know.
It's a good first impression.
Very good first impression. But it was like a happy Valentine's Day. They took advantage of a really cool opportunity to show them some love. So hashtag LYN.
The answer is always baked goods.
Yes.
Cookies, donuts, bring it all.
I will be
I'll
your neighbor.
take some. I'm sure Cammie and Ryan will take some cookies and donuts.
Yes, cookies.
What's going on right outside these walls?
Oh, yes. Here at Blue Ridge, we have what we're calling a winter shelter. And basically, it's just us responding to a need that is in our community. The Bedford DSS reached out and asked if we would be willing to open our doors for those who basically have no power.
Yes, the ice has wiped out power.
Yes,
and so people don't have heat or their ability to charge their phones, devices, things that they need, that kind of thing.
So this past week, we were just able to be a warm, safe place to some families who just wanted to take a shower.
Yep,
wanted to plug their cell phone in. And it was really cool to see how Blue Ridge was able to, through local missions, meet a really practical need.
So many stories of people loving their community and loving their neighbor. So love your neighbor, hashtag LYN. Use the hashtag. We want to hear the stories. We want to hear what's going on so we can encourage the body at large.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we are going to jump into another talk from our series, Fixed on Jesus.
Yep, going through Hebrews 12.
Yes, and today is going to be called Shaken versus Unshaken, and Jeremy is going to dig into that shortly. But first, we're going to join our worship team. And so I encourage you guys, as you are stepping out of maybe a crazy morning, maybe you're coming home from work, maybe you are late at night, just kind of getting this talk in throughout the week. Get to a place where you can get quiet and just focus on Jesus and praise him through this time. And we're going to join our worship team.
Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace.
So back in my early 20s, before I moved here to Virginia, as I've shared with you in the past, I lived with 6 or 7 roommates depending on the season when we lived back in Colorado. And 2 of those roommates were whitewater river guides on the Animas River, the river that ran through Durango, Colorado, the town I grew up in. Now, because they spent a ton of time out on the water, they would often invite myself and our other roommates out to kayak or raft down the river. Now, up to that point in my life, I hadn't spent much time on whitewater kayaking or river rafting. So because of this, and because this was their passion, they were eager to instruct. I remember some of those early lessons, teaching us how to roll and escape and overturn kayak, learning the terminology associated with navigating whitewater as a team in a raft. But one that sticks out or has stuck out to me for years, and largely because I've often used it as a metaphor for following Jesus, was the lesson about the downstream V, or the tongue. You see, when traveling down a river, there are all sorts of obstacles you're trying to navigate. Everything from the shallows to rocks and boulders to things called strainers. When you think of a strainer, think of like a colander made up of debris, fallen trees, and other things like that in the water that allows water to pass through, but not something solid like a person or a boat. And people can regularly or do regularly drown when they get caught in a strainer because the pressure of the water flowing through the debris can pin a person against it. So what they teach you to look for while navigating whitewater is called the downstream V, or the tongue, because it usually represents the deepest and cleanest line down a rapid. As you can see in this photo, obstacles are on either side of this kayaker, and the clean water is there in that V. Well, in this series, Fixed on Jesus, that's what we've been talking about. In this life, there are all sorts of obstacles, things that as we're attempting to run the river of life, we can get caught on. Things that want to flip us over, strainers that can cause us to feel like we are literally drowning. Shallow water that can force us to slow down. And we've collectively experienced many of these things over the last 12 months. And yet the author of Hebrews is calling us to fix our eyes on Jesus through it all, to look for the V in the middle of the white water of life. That section of deep water that allows us to navigate the craziness that surrounds us. And so throughout Hebrews 12, the author has been teaching us what obstacles can keep us from seeing the V in the midst of the rapids. The obstacles wanting to keep us from fixing on Jesus. So in our last full week in this series, because next week is a special celebration wrap up to Hebrews 12, I want to look at one more thing that can keep us from fixing on Jesus. One more thing that wants to capsize us as we look for the V in the water. But before we begin, would you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you for this series. I thank you for what it's meant for me. I thank you for what you started doing in me through this all the way back in November of last year, the thing that it's revealed and the things I've been able to lean into. And so I pray for this last week as we lean in once again into this passage, that in a very practical way, you would reveal your heart for us. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. So if you have a Bible, you can open it up to Hebrews chapter 12 once again. And we'll begin reading where we left off last week in verse 26. It begins like this. At that time, his voice shook the earth. So before we continue, a quick review from last week. If you tuned in last week, you will remember that the author of Hebrews gave us a contrast of two mountains, Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. The first mountain, Mount Sinai, is a picture of the law, of rules, because it's where God gave the Israelites actually the law, his commands, things like the 10 Commandments. So Mount Sinai symbolizes things like, if you do this, I will do this. An interaction of obligation, something that was unattainable and temporary, something that was meant to point towards someone greater. The second mountain, however, Mount Zion, is a picture of grace, of relationship, what he has done for us. That rather than obligation, it's one of response. Rather than temporary, it's eternal. And these two mountains, Mount Sinai versus Mount Zion, the author is contrasting things like law and grace, got to versus get to, do versus done. So when this section begins, at this time, he's referring to that first mountain, Mount Sinai. He says this, at this time, his voice shook the earth at Mount Sinai. But now, so he's speaking to us in present day, but now he has promised, once more, I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken. That is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. So when I read that, I hear a lot of shaking going on, right? Things that can't be shaken and some things that can be shaken. Things that will remain and some that will be removed. So what's being said here? Well, about a month ago, I was talking to the church's insurance company, asking, do we have enough insurance coverage for the content in our building at our Bedford location? Our rep was trying to explain to me the difference between insuring the building itself and insuring the content in the building. And basically, she said this, Jeremy, imagine taking the roof off of the top of the building, turning it upside down and shaking it. Whatever would fall out, those are the things you're looking to cover under your content policy. And that's what I imagine the author of Hebrews is saying to us. He's saying there is going to be a time in the future where the roofs of each of our lives will be taken off. And God's going to turn us upside down and give our lives a big shake. And everything of this world will fall out. And only the unshakable things, the things of this upside down kingdom, of his upside down kingdom, will remain. John, one of Jesus' first disciples, wrote this in his letter, 1 John chapter 2, verse 15. He says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, listen to this, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, that is our appetites that we talked about a couple weeks ago, the lust of the eyes, the things that we want, the things that we covet, and the pride of life, our arrogance or our lack of need for God, comes not from the Father, but from the world. Verse 17, he says this, the world and its desires pass away. The roof will be taken off. The house will be turned upside down, and everything that falls out will pass away. But whoever does the will of God lives forever. Only the will of the Father, the things of his upside down kingdom, and those who do his will remain. I told you a couple weeks ago about how my family and I, we watched this travel vlog on YouTube. It's a couple named Nate and Karen. One of our favorite places that they've visited that we've never been to is Egypt. And obviously one of the things you do while in Egypt is visit those ancient sites, Places like the Valley of the Kings, where there are over 60 tombs, mostly of men and women who once ruled Egypt over a 500-year period. And what's so fascinating to me, in somewhat of a comical way, that is all the stuff these leaders buried themselves with, believing they would carry it with them into the afterlife. Now, some of the tombs possess hidden rooms because they knew as soon as they were gone, the next person, whether it was a grave robber or another ruler, would come in and steal their stuff from their grave. And so obviously we look at this practice and we think it's silly, right? We would never consider being buried with all of our stuff because we know it doesn't go with us. But while we would never choose to be buried with it, the author of Hebrews is issue a warning about living our life as if we believe the things of this world go with us after we die. See, let me ask you this question. If we look honestly at where we invest our time, is it in the things that will be shaken out or the things that will remain? If we look at where we invest our resources, is it in what ultimately will be shaken free or what is eternal? If we look at where we invest our emotions and our thoughts, is it in what one day will be shaken out after the roof of our lives are removed, or is it in the permanent, in the forever? You see, we may not practice what the Egyptians practice in death, but in life do we live as if those shakeable things are unshakable? So what are those unshakable things in life? The things worthy of investing our time, our emotions, our resources. We see them talked about all throughout the Bible. So here are just a few of them. Matthew wrote this when he recorded Jesus' words. He said, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" Placing our time, our effort, our energy into making disciples, followers, apprentices of Jesus, those are things that will remain. Going to those who've yet to follow Jesus, sharing the good news of the gospel and our lives with them, that's eternal. Being a part of people's baptism stories, that's unshakable. Teaching people what Jesus has taught us, investing into people what has been invested into us by other disciples, making disciples who in turn make more disciples, that's the unshakable stuff. Paul wrote to the church at Corinth in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7, he says this, "Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another of knowledge, by means of that same Spirit, to another faith by that same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by that one Spirit, to another miraculous powers, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another speaking different kinds of tongues, and still to another interpretation of tongues." He's talking about the spiritual gifts God's Spirit gives to every single one of his followers. Gifts that are meant to be used for the building up of his bride, the church. Gifts that are meant to be leveraged and developed for the ushering in of his upside down kingdom. These are the things that will never be shaken. Paul also wrote to the church at Galatia this. He said, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things, there is no law." See, does the fruit of the Spirit define our lives, our interactions? Because this fruit of his Spirit is that which will remain. Another one of Jesus' first disciples, Matthew, he recorded this in Matthew chapter 25. "Then a king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me.'" And after he says this, he says his listeners will ask, "Jesus, when did we do these things?" Verse 40, The king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. When we give away our time, our talent, our treasure, our care, our love, our hospitality to the least of these in our world, Jesus says we are doing it as if we were doing it for him. You see, these are just a few of the examples of the unshakable things that will remain one day when Jesus has taken the roof of our lives and shaken them upside down. So if all of this is true, which I believe it is, how do we cultivate a life that's more focused on the unshakable versus the shakeable? Well, one of the first steps is an awareness of all the temporary shakeable stuff we are surrounded by. So, since many of us are watching this from our home, I want to try something a little different, something a little more interactive. And if you're not at home, that's fine. Do this exercise in your mind right now, but please, once you get home, check this timestamp in the description down below and go back to this moment and walk through this exercise in person. So here is what I'd like you to go and do right now. Go and grab a pack of sticky notes or masking tape, painter's tape, or Scotch tape and paper, something that's sticky but is easily removable. And while you're grabbing some of that tape, would you also open up this talk on a mobile device? Because you're gonna need to be free to move throughout your home while you're listening. So seriously, pause the video right now, go grab something that you can stick to things and open this talk up on a mobile device, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, now that you've done that, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go on a guided tour through our homes. And what we will do is we will be placing these sticky notes or tape or whatever else you grabbed on items that represent or symbolize all the stuff in our lives that we give our time, our effort, our money, our emotions to, that one day will be shaken free. Not because this stuff is unnecessary to life or is evil or wrong, but they illustrate how many of the things that surround us on a daily basis that are truly those shakable things, and therefore how easy it is to fix on all of that rather than fix on Jesus. One last thing. Before we start, please pause this video as necessary so you can place stickers on what rings true for you or what my words may remind you of throughout, even if I don't mention it by name. So let's begin. Let's begin by heading outside into your driveway. Maybe there you see your vehicles. A boat, an ATV, a motorcycle, an RV. Maybe you're the type who every weekend is out there cleaning, polishing, vacuuming. Maybe it's always about a new car, a large car payment, the new big kids' toys. If it's what you think about, you have all the magazines and the internet sites bookmarked. Your energy and time is spent thinking about horsepower, engine size, 0 to 60. If this rings true for you, place a sticker on a few of those things in your driveway. Maybe it's the lawn, the landscaping. It's always the greenest, the best manicured. If this is true of you, place a sticker on it. Maybe outside of your home, there's an American flag. And in that, you know your thoughts are of this country and its greatness. Maybe it represents a side of the aisle, a political leaning. And maybe you forget that even that flag and all that it represents is temporary. Do you need to place a sticker on that flag? Okay, head inside. Stand in your entryway. Maybe there you see book bags representing your school, your education. Not a bad thing, but one day it too will be shaken out. Maybe you see a purse hanging on a hook. Pull out the wallet representing our money, our bank accounts, our investments, our 401k, our retirement. Place a sticker on it. Maybe in your entryway, you see work boots or a briefcase, a badge, a swipe card, keys hanging on a hook or in a basket that you use to enter your place of employment, the place you spend most of your waking hours, the place we can find our identity in often. Remember, it's all temporary. Place a sticker on it. From there, move into your living room, your sitting room, TV watching room. Maybe see your favorite chair or a couch, the place you love to sit. The things that symbolize all the resources we can use to making our lives as comfortable as possible. Place a sticker on it. Maybe see a TV, a gaming console, a streaming device, all the hours spent on entertainment. Place a sticker on it. Next, move to the kitchen. A place that represents the appetites we talked about a few weeks ago. When we asked the question, what's in your bowl? Place a sticker on your refrigerator as a symbol of those temporary appetites. Or maybe you're in the middle of a remodel, buying new appliances, all those matching stainless steel stuff. Or maybe you're wishing for an update. Not necessarily wrong, but our kitchens can be a picture of the American dream, the idea that necessities aren't enough, like most of the rest of the world and most of the rest of human history, but luxury and extravagance are needed. Remind yourself it's all temporary by placing stickers on several of the different items in your kitchen. Now head to your bedroom. More specifically, go into your closet. Look at the shoes, the clothes, the boxes, the outfits hanging you only wore once that maybe still have the tags on them. Think of the phrase, I don't have anything to wear tonight. And then look again at that closet. Think about the clothes in your closet representing all the things we purchase, all the shopping trips, the things we fill our lives with, all the stuff that even if we were to be buried with, couldn't go with us. Place a sticker on a few of the items in your closet. Now go into your bathroom. Look at all the beauty products, the grooming devices, the makeup. Look in the mirror and the time spent obsessing, all temporary. Place a sticker on the mirror. Now head to the garage or your basement. Look at the bikes, the tools, the sporting goods stuff, the exercise equipment, the fishing and hunting equipment, the basketballs, the footballs, the hobbies. Go around and place stickers on all the things that are temporary, that one day will be shaken out. Finally, that mobile device you're holding, that thing we spend so much time on, streaming on, getting notifications, checking email, looking at social media, getting the news and weather, Googling on, most of it temporary, most of it will be shaken free. Place a sticker on it. Now look around at your house. Look at all the things screaming for our affection, our attention, our time, our money, all the stuff that the author of Hebrews says will be shaken out of our lives one day. Look around at how easy it is to live our lives for things that won't last. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, if possible, keep these stickers in place as a reminder of all the things that surround us that one day will be removed. And here's the deal. Now, you may be single, you may not have roommates, or you may have a family, you may have lots of roommates like I used to have. Notice what we didn't put stickers on. People. People made in the image of God. People that God sent his son, Jesus, to die for because he desired for them, for us to experience him, not just temporarily, but for all of eternity. Here's my challenge to you. How can you live this week in light of what is eternal, what is unshakable, the ones made in the image of God, rather than in light of what is temporary, what will one day be removed?
What a great perspective to focus on the people in our lives versus the things in our lives.
Yep.
Yeah, focus on the things that are unshaken versus the things that are shaken.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me of like a couple years ago, before I came on staff at Blue Ridge, I was working in the wedding industry, filming, and I had this recurring dream. And I was standing in front of Christ, holding in my hands what I devoted my life to. And at the time, it was media, it was films and filmmaking. And And so really that has been a new like perspective and a new filter for my life. And it's like, I mean, it comes up all the time still. It's not like an easy thing that I'm just like, oh, did that, got it nailed. But
that was a pivotal moment in your life where you chose to focus on something different. And it's brought you so many cool opportunities.
It has, yeah. And I would say God did that in me, not me for myself.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you guys. What is God teaching you through Jeremy's talk today? And let us know what things in your life do you need to focus on, and what is God teaching you as you let go of the things that are shaken? And then we will see you next week at Blue Ridge Online.